Lab kids in here? No? Okay. Because Borderlands is actually a pretty respected journal. The argument is interesting. It just says that when we confront the sheer... It's actually, you could probably read it as a policy impact, too. Or like some sort of... Like, our framework is good because it imagines suicide, right? Something like that. It just simply says, when we imagine the destruction of the human race, then we realize how effed up it would be if we let it happen. I'm inclined to say maybe that warrants an apt vote. It's something you have to look out for, right, because the app's trying to stop it. But you can say, no, our thought exercise into UNT was good. You should advocate that sort of strategy or knowledge or epistemology. Something like that. Now you're saying, I hate all of these arguments. They're really dumb. How do I answer them? The good stuff. Because you should never lose to crazy arguments. The ways to answer them are really easy. The first thing you need to do, don't fall prey to their game. The whole point of running crazy arguments is to get people to look ridiculous when they take you too seriously. So if someone gets up and reads Ashtar, if someone gets up and reads alien moon bases, if someone gets up and says you caused the Alpha Draconis to find some sort of power source and they're going to beat us with it, don't immediately think, God, we got to have cards on that to beat it. No, you have to be logical. You have to not let yourself get sucked in, because you know who's going to have more cards on aliens? The team running aliens. You're just not going to have more of it. So don't get sucked into and cross-ex some sort of me, but you're dumb as I am. Right? Because you're going to look silly, and the judge will be like, wow, they're really taking this seriously. Whereas it'll look a lot better for you, and it'll destroy the credibility and the ethos that the other team is building if you approach them saying, all right, these are some interesting positions. Let's weigh how these authors came to these conclusions. Let's try to understand. And watch them try to dance around the channeling question. Don't say channeling's bad, because that gives them the link to the religious intolerance stuff, right? But be like, how do you know that they channel? They'd be like, well, she is pretty serious priest in the Ashtar church. And be like, well, that's fascinating. What involves, becoming a priest? To be like, well, I haven't studied that. And be like, all right, so you're pretty much an expert. You're reading some really qualified evidence. Why should we believe you? They'd be like, because. And then you don't push it any farther than that. Once you get them to admit that they have no reason, don't go for the kill shot, because it makes you look like a jerk. The judge, believe it or not, is smart enough to come to the conclusion that that team's dumb, and they know what they're reading is dumb. I promise you. The second, don't be afraid to ignore things. Right? Half the reason these arguments get run is because these debaters are bored, and because they know you'll probably go to it. A famous example of this is something that the Wycliffe used to read that was called the IQ test. They would get to the page, they would say, if you go to this page, you should lose the debate and move on. 9 out of 10 teams will go to that page. Idiot. They want you not to go to it. Believe them. Right? I know that it's so ingrained in you to view the other team as some devious other, and they are. They're devious. They're out to get you. But don't be afraid to be like, that's so dumb, I don't need to talk about it. I think that there are a fair number of arguments out there that are so dumb, you don't need to talk about it. Or you need to say something that is as basic as, this doesn't make sense. When they bring up some empirical evidence or reason why this is true, we'll answer it. Until then, lols. Thanks for entertaining me in the UNT. Now you should make some winning arguments before the debate's over. Right? The third, know your judge. This is difficult. I know that maybe you won't know your judge, but most judges will be on the side of non-stupidity. Most judges will make logical arguments for you. You just have to hint at them. Parent judges will definitely be on the side of non-stupidity. If you are in front of a parent and you hear Wipeout, and your immediate response is, sweet, we've got these aliens turn we're going to read, you have fallen for the trap. All you have to do is say, look, Mom, Pa, this is dumb. And they'll be like, yeah, this is dumb. I thought debate was educational. This is why we're cutting your programs. What are you doing in this activity? And you will win that debate very easily. And the parent will probably go talk to the other kid's team. So, you should write this down like the header of all of your blogs about fake arguments. Stop, think, keep thinking, and then you can speak. right? You need to be relaxed. I know that it's really, really fun to talk about this stuff, right? This is like my favorite type of arguments to debate. But generally, they're really dumb. And the teams that are running these arguments know that. And they're there to mess with you. I loved nothing more when I was debating than a team taking me up on one of these arguments and trying to debate me on it. We had a counterpoint where we draw pictures on the board of aliens attacking a dinosaur, and we called it a T-Rorax. And we were like, that's a solvency. And in rounds where people would question us on how the solvency worked, I was like, sweet, I'm about to waste all of your cross-sects and make you look dumb. And I would make up a story about the board. Don't do that. Don't do that. You know if something's dumb, right? So leave it be. Think about what you do before you do it, and think carefully. Be like, if I answer this, how am I falling prey to their trap? It's generally a trap. And you see X to your own advantage, right? Because these teams are waiting for cross-sects. Cross-sects is the best time. Yes, now I'm going to make them look like fools. No, don't let them do that. You have to control the cross-sects. And the way to do that is to ask them careful questions about the way that their methodology happens, but I would say don't ask more than 2. If you're not getting a satisfactory answer because they're speaking in circles, or they're talking about how they have a direct line to Ashtar and they call them on their magical cell phone or something, don't be like, oh, sweet, I'm going to go ahead and use the 3 more minutes to figure that out. No, dude, that's crazy. They're making it up. The judge knows that too, so leave it be, right? Just be like, all right, we're done. When people get frustrated with these arguments, it's because they haven't thought through these arguments. You will win 9 out of 10 times just by making smart, analytical arguments. You don't have to have cards to beat those things. But the most important thing is that you don't fall prey, don't drink their Kool-Aid. Don't let them fluster you. Does that make sense? Any questions about that? Okay. All right. How do you answer communication gorilla? I think there are 2 decent ways to do this, and we could probably brainstorm more if we have time. The first is that say it's already commodified. Something you all might have noticed in your everyday life, or maybe you haven't noticed, which would be much to the delight of these companies, is that advertisements are showing up in subtle places that you never would have expected them. It's almost like communication gorilla via the corporation, right? So you need to say something like, this has been commodified and used by large corporations for their own devious purposes. So the communication gorilla is a strategy that, and so you may say, well, what's the impact? You know, companies do things that K people say should do all the time. I think you said that there would be either too much conflicting, I know there are articles out there that say this because they were read against us, that there are too much conflicting subliminal marketing, that you simply can't beat back the powers that be by doing that sort of marketing or by doing that sort of disruptive activity, i.e. disrupting debate. I think the good, smart analytic after you read a card like this is say something like coaches and judges aren't moving away from the type of debate that you hate. There's a reason for that. It's pretty good. It's not the best, it's not perfect, but it's pretty good. And all you're doing is jaking around and ruining our activity because programs get cut when people, when administrators come and watch this. And I think that you should make that argument as well. Be like, making irresponsible arguments like this in front of administrators, in front of principals, in front of parents is really bad for policy debate. And policy debate is under attack right now, and we don't need things like this. And they'll say, well, that's censorship, and that's bad. You say, look, dude, I'm not trying to censor you. And say whatever you want. I just want you to have thought about it. And the judge, I think the judge will do the impact for you there, as long as it's a parent judge. College judges, they might. Yeah. This is the game over argument, though. This is the best. There are cards out there that say it doesn't solve. These cards will say that culture jamming has failed. That's why I said remember the term culture jamming. They will say that culture jamming actually leads to more subliminal control because it trains the mind to see advertisements and then becomes susceptible to it. Not sure how the methodology of that study works because it seems to me if you see them you wouldn't be, but for some reason they say it is. It's by communication scholars. I'm inclined to believe.
Is that communication spelled with a K too?
No. This is from some goofy group in Germany and France that started all this mess. I say that because K-teens are apt to be like, dude, I'm communication gorilla, yo. You're like, no, you're an idiot. You're actually not. Spelled with a C. So when you search it, do search communication with a C, but you'll likely see communication gorilla like that. I think that this is a movement that died out. I think it's a lot like Twitter right now. You know how people are really excited about Twitter and they're like, oh, Twitter's a new revolution. It's a new tool to stop oppressive governments. You know, probably not. That's really optimistic. In the same way, a lot of these cards that say communication gorilla is good were written in the early 2000s. I think by now people have figured out communication gorilla's revolutionary potential just isn't, or not that much. So I think you'll find more and more new cards say communication gorilla doesn't work, culture jamming doesn't work, ad busters doesn't work, stuff like that, because it's an old theory of communication. Now that shouldn't deter you from running this if it's something you want, but it does mean you'll have to find some graduate student at some college who decided that communication gorilla does work and has written a bunch on it. Because I think the overwhelming preponderance of evidence is the other, that it doesn't work. Questions on that before we go? Good. Answer in Wipeout. It is so aggravating. Or I guess we should go back. If you're running Wipeout, do you read defense to their impacts? Should you read some KSD on the impacts there? Answer that question.
No. Because then you're defending a very
Because then they say, sweet, you're right. We don't get to extinction. We'll take the nuke war. You lose, right? Don't read KSD. The same way, you have to be careful. Sorry I didn't mention that above. Go up, put it in your notes. My brain is scattered and I don't have my lecture notes. Okay, so the 5 ways to answer Wipeout. The first, defend that humans are good. Right? Humans as a species are good. It's sweet. We're cool. We're not bad. The second, find cards about how fun or good life is. And these are not hard to find. These cards can be as ridiculous as life has adventures in them. Adventures are fun. Because I think what you do, what you do is weigh that fun against the probability of their impact, which is very low, and you win the round. It would be the first time you've ever won a round on the impact fun. You're going to look at the other team and be like, idiots. And they'll lose you. Also, you get to weigh your impacts. How? Indict their evidence with logic. Think about what they're saying. If they read particle accelerators, ask them specific questions about how the particle accelerator problem goes down. Fourth, read offense to conspiracy theories. This goes for all the crazies above. I didn't put the citations in this lecture because I forgot. Goldberg, The Enemies Within is the book you want. That's Enemies Within by Goldberg. In that book, he says that conspiracy theories are bad for the nation, they're bad for politics, and they lead to irresponsible political discussion. You read that as external offense on these positions, I guarantee 99% of the time the teams aren't going to have defenses of conspiracy theory. Easy win. Easy headshot. Perhaps you do. Fantastic. We'll have a debate. Still got to deal with indicting the logic of your crazies. The fifth and final reason, this is the last reason because I think it's the weakest, is take them up on their own ground and debate them on it. I don't think you're best suited to debate aliens if you don't do it all the time. So why do it? You can read cards that respond to them directly, but first, I think you should do the first 4. Because if you go to their playground, they're going to beat you up. Keep them on your ground. Any questions about that? I think we're almost done.
Yeah, it's like 8:19.